This is the one ad that got us 600 plus IG leads plus 10 clients in just 7 days, and is specifically for agencies or coaches. So if you're one of them wanting to do 100K plus, then this is what you can copy exactly for yourself to also get the same results. And this strategy is going to be so simple. And it's going to be so straightforward that you can pretty much take this strategy for your own business and start implementing it as well and seeing the same results. And anyone can do this regardless of your audience size or anything that you have right now going on. With this ads, organic, whatever it is that you do, you can still make this strategy work because it works in all industries across the board. Now, most people think that ads, specifically, which is what this strategy is about, only works if you burn through thousands of dollars or euros a day, or build 5 funnels at once, or test 3 different strategies, or hire a whole team of setters or content creators for content that needs to go viral. And then what happens is no views get attained, no quality content gets pretty much pushed towards your ideal audience. So you waste a lot of time, you waste a lot of money, you waste a lot of budget with what you could have worked with just one simple thing that can leverage everything in one place and work 24/7 for you. So what if I told you this all above is BS? It's not needed, it's useless, and it won't help you move forward. But what if I told you this is also too much? It's also too much of things that you need to do in order to get the result that you want. And most of you watching this want to get from 5 to 15K a month, or maybe you're doing a little bit more, to 20K, 50K, or 100K plus a month, or maybe 200K a month. And you don't need to do more. You just need to focus on what's already working and what we know that works in the market. And that's just, you need one great conversion mechanism to convert cold leads to red hot leads that want your offer and that are ready to buy. You just need one simple conversion mechanism. Not more, not 2, not 3, not 4, just one, with one simple ad, one simple funnel, and just one clip. Yes, that's right. So we got all of this, which is one specific way of showcasing our ideal audience, someone and something in specific that gives them the, understanding that we know what we're talking about, that gives them the understanding that we have the leverage in the market, that gives them the understanding that we know how to deliver the results and how to get them from position A to position B and get them the result that they want. Now, we didn't have a studio, and I'm going to get into the ad in this video. We didn't have a script. We didn't have a fancy edit. Furthermore, it was something that took us 10 minutes to record. Yes, 10 minutes it took us to record this entire thing that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And it was just a cut from an interview put in front of the right people. And what happened in the first 7 days was that we got 6,474 profile visits on my Instagram, 44 appointments booked, and 10 high-ticket clients closed. That's it, right? And these clients all closed at a price point between 9.6K and 15K a pop. So the ad cost nothing to produce. It literally didn't cost us anything. It only cost me my time, which was 15 minutes, and then the editing part, which was 10 minutes, and then the posting part on the ad, which is 5 minutes. So total time was pretty much 30 minutes that it took me to get this ad from not created to created, done, live, launched, and ready to be positioned in front of my audience and already running on Meta ads. The structure was also simple, and the numbers proved themselves immediately, and it did not work because I simply hacked the algorithm, or I spammed DMs, or I had some magic trick that worked. No, it was something that always works. It always has worked, and it always will work. And it worked also because it was proof driven. The message was very proof driven. It was simple, and it aimed directly at the right audience, showcasing them what I did with someone else in the market that was in their footsteps, pretty much going from a certain position to a desired situation. And in this video, as I said, I'll walk you through the ad itself, the numbers so you understand it, the setup behind it, and the DM flow that pretty much converted it, and also how we tracked it into something that's scalable and repeatable, because that's the most important thing. You don't want to have something that works just for a day. You want to have something that works for a week, a month, and hopefully years upon years. So first, you got to understand this proof snapshot. Now, this is a snapshot taken immediately from our ads manager, the actual numbers, and this is all in dirham, so it's divided by 4 if you want to calculate it into euros or dollars. So what we're seeing here is that we're getting probably, approximately a cost per appointment of like 111, 112 euros, right? So with that in mind, with that cost per book call at this current moment, and this was in the first couple of days, just for your understanding, we were running 2 simple ads, right? 2 simple ads, nothing complicated. So it wasn't 50 ad variations or some viral creative or whatever. It was just 2 cuts from the same interview. So what we did is we had a interview with one of our clients, right? And if you go pretty much to my YouTube channel and you pretty much, find pretty much with the videos that I'm doing and all these things, you're going to see that I have like a ton of people that, we've helped before, because we've helped a lot of people get results before, right? We've helped a lot of people go from A to Z, whether it's an agency owner or a coach. We've helped them go from nothing to, pretty much doing a 10K, 20K, 50K plus business. And some we've even helped doing already 5K, 10K, 20K, go to a 50K, 100K or 100K plus business. So when I see this, and when you see this already, you're like, okay, we can take that interview and we can do something with it, right? So what we did is we took that interview, but because it's too long, so there was this interview of 14 minutes here that you can see with Sophia. So we took that interview, but because the interview was too long in itself for us to run it as an ad, right, which we ended up testing, by the way, in the future, we took that one and we took snippets out of it of the best bits that we could position in front of our audience to give them an idea on how we helped her and how we did it for her. So, for example, the ad itself goes in on her saying, you helped me scale from 10K, 15K to 100K plus within the first 10 seconds of that ad running. Right? So from this interview clip, we took the snippets, we took it and we launched it into an ad like this and ran it on Meta with a simple copy that always converts for us. And it's pretty much a simple ad that is very straightforward and very, easy to set up and easy to run. And that's what we want to have. We want to have something that's not complicated, because a strategy doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be quality and it just needs to work. That's the only thing that we need. And we need something that works. And we have something that works and we have something that's, quality. You don't need to overcomplicate on anything on the other end that you're doing. You don't need it. Because if you have something that's actually providing value and showcasing that someone in their position has gone from a certain situation to another, showcasing your authority pretty much on that leverage, then you'd only need to position it in front of the right people and position it in front of more of the right people and just scale it up when you're seeing that it's getting the right people, and just get the booked calls and get the clients. So just got to understand, we took that interview, we made snippets out of it, and with one slightly different hook, that's it. So in one of the pretty much hooks, she says like, I reached out to you to pretty much help me because I was inspired by, your work and what we're doing. And let's start with the first 3 months pretty much. And then she says in the first 15 seconds how we got her the results. And then we have another version also running, which is a little bit of a different hook and a little bit of a different edit pretty much that we did. But it's still the same video. It's still from the same video. So we didn't change anything on the video part. It was just her and us pretty much just having that snippet of the testimonial, and that's it, right? Only thing we added as well, as you can see, we added like captions. So if people don't have their sound on, that they can still read what we're saying in the interview, which we notice that is a big thing also currently in Meta. So you got to really make sure that people, can read it, because if they don't have their sound on, then it's going to be a problem because they don't know what's happening. They're going to scroll through. So what we also have is a placeholder and mentioning her name, which is already leveraged because people know her, and then saying what we did with her. So we went from 10K to 100K with us, and we pretty much scaled her that way. And then we go into the ad and pretty much how we do it and all these things. So this is the basic of what we did. This is the basic of the ad strategy that we did. And the thing is, we launch now everything with all of our clients and the results and the testimonies and all these things in front of the right audience and the positioning of the audience, and helping them understand also what we do more, so they get converted, from someone that doesn't know us to someone that has a trust with us, and then from there pretty much converts into a book call. Hence the following outcome. CPC was pretty much showing us that we got a 3.83 cost per click. And if you don't know about numbers, like pretty much I love everything in terms of numbers. So I want to know, what do I pay in order for me to get this client? And a lot of people don't know how much they're actually paying to acquire a client. So for me to give you like this, answer and pretty much like showcase to you what we're doing and how we're doing it, I need to, show you the data. So to give you an idea, we're spending now about like 400 a month, as you can see here, on pretty much the ads. And we have, we're on ballpark averaging like a 3.75 ROAS. So on cash, that is, not on anything else. So revenue is 8.14, which means that if I put €1 in, I'm going to get 8 out, Doesn't have to be immediately, but I'll get it out maybe in a month or 2 months or 3 months. But me knowing this, I can spend more to acquire a client because I know that I'm good on my cost per acquisition and I'm good on my ROAS, which means I can scale collectively and effectively because I can make sure that I know that I'm making a profit whenever I put €1 in the ads. Okay, so I hope you're following me on that part. Now, the cost per click on this, one was 3.83. What does that mean? It means that if people see everything, we get a lot of impressions, we get a lot of people seeing it. How many people do actually click on the ad? So it shows the efficiency of the creative at the driving attention. 3.89. Some people would say like it's really high. Like it's actually really high. But here's where my strategy comes into. I look at deep funnel metrics. I don't really care about the cost per click, the cost CPM, and the cost per lead, and like all these things. If my deeper funnel metrics, so for example, my cash ROAS, my revenue ROAS, and my cost per acquisition are intact. If those things are good, I'm good. I don't have to worry about all these other things. But I still want to tell you these so you understand, the importance of when you see stats that are very high, that you think like, I'm paying 20.25 euros pretty much for per 1,000 views. It's pretty much like it's very high, right? But it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, if you're acquiring a lot of clients, you're getting a full return on your cash immediately, and which is liquid. We don't care about what is happening on this end. So even if the cost per lead, like for us, it was pretty low in the first couple of days. So with these stats, we had 6 booked calls at 100 cost per book call, which made our cost per lead become very low. But now you will see, and I will show that to you in a second, my cost per lead has gone up to like 305 because what we're doing now is we're also having a type form set up in place, and we also have a couple of other things set up in place. It's higher, but the lead quality is still good, which means I'm getting a cost per lead of 305, but we're getting a booked call at 331. So what does this mean? Every single lead that's almost going through is booking a call. So pretty much like every person that's coming through is quality enough to book a call with us, which means that my cost per book call is almost the same as my cost per lead. And at 331 a pop, at 331, I really could care less if it's 500 or 600 or 700 or 800, right? I really could care less. And a lot of people don't understand this. They're like, I'm running meta ads and, I've spent 200 euros and I didn't get anything out of it. Well, what's the price of your program? What's the price of your service? Well, it's an average of like 2K, 3K. Well, how can you not spend more in order for you to acquire a client at maybe a higher cost, which will pay itself off by your price? And I sincerely hope that if you watch this, you have a program or a service that will have your clients stick with you for at least bare minimum 3 months. So if your price is already at 2K, 3K, they should at least stay for 3 months. If they're leaving you after a month, you don't have a business. Like there's something very wrong. A restaurant that doesn't have people coming back to them is a restaurant that doesn't exist for a long time. We build things on lifetime value. And when we build things on lifetime value, we understand that when a client comes in on the first end, we don't necessarily have to make the most amount of money on that first initial payment, which means I can pay more to get a call. I can pay more to acquire a client because I know they're going to stay longer, and I know that when they come with us, they're going to be paying us off on a monthly basis and sticking with us for a minimum of at least a year, which means that if they come on for 2K a month, which they don't be with me because my price is higher, we do 2K a month and they stay for 12 months, which is 1 year, we know that we're already making 24,000 on the front end. So if you then tell me that your cost per call of 200 or 300, that you're paying too much for a client with something calculated like that, you're completely not understanding numbers in a business. You don't understand how numbers work, and I really want you to go back to the building blocks and really understand this video to the core, because otherwise you're going to just waste money and think ads don't work. Now, the cost per call for us, as I said, at that time was around 235. So we spent like 235, right? And we got that pretty much around that mark. And it actually, as I said, went up, but I could care less. I could give 2 cents about like if this is going up or not. I really don't care. The main thing I care about is my lead conversion. The main thing I care about is people actually converting and actually going in and getting into the service that we're doing and pretty much converting into becoming a client. Now, cost per show. So pretty much skeptics know calls equal like revenue, and this bridges the gap. So 324 per actual show up. It actually went up a little bit, 476, which means that our show up rate is like around 70%. We've never had a drop off of the show up rate of less, I would say than like 70%, 70, 65%, which is still decent. You got to understand, like, these are cold people that come in and pretty much are, know us, but sort of people that come from these 16 are actually super high converting, because as you can see, 43% is the close rate, and there are still people in the pipeline which are going to be closing. So we're already actually, other than the ads, pretty much got into like 120k in revenue this month, and about like 75k in cash collected, to be honest. And pretty much right now, if you see this, like total is like 55k, but Stripe is not collecting everything because we have also different payment processors, and we have also like different Stripe accounts and all these things. So 55k within pretty much this month, with a 36k MRR pretty much additionally added for this month. So you can see this month to date, this is pretty much 1st of October, and then this is the 18th of October. So pretty much like we have like cash in that sense that is more than what the tracking sheet is showing us. Why? Because we also have people coming from different places that still get attributed to the ads, but we don't put that on the sheet because we like to be a little bit more like, I would say, like pessimistic in terms of the tracking sheet. So we know like kind of, okay, people come from the ads also, they see the ads, but they don't necessarily clicked on the ads. So we don't note them down in the tracking sheet, if that makes sense. So the cost per acquisition at that time was at 1,297 per client closed at a price point of 9.6K and 15K a pop. Now, gotta understand, this actually went lower. So when the cost per call and the pretty much like what you can see here, the show up rate went up, as you can see, my cost per acquisition actually went down. How can that be? Well, it can be because the conversion metrics on the front end doesn't necessarily have to lead to an equation of like the back end. I can close a client at 15K, but my cost per book call can still stay the same, because the cost per book call doesn't have any form of say of what happens with the cost per acquisition, and it doesn't affect it immediately when the cost per acquisition changes. So when the cost per acquisition changes to lower, because I close the client, my closing rate goes up, right? And my lead conversion goes up, yes, but my cost per book call doesn't change, because the amount of leads that come through and actually book a call, that's what equates to the cost per lead, right? So we want to understand these metrics, as I said, these basic metrics. And if we can understand that if you can get a client at, as I said, 9.6K or 15K a pop, we can pretty much spend, I would say, 1/5 of this price point to actually acquire a client. So what do I mean with that? Let's say my price is 9.6K, right? 9,600. So I want to divide it by 5, which means 1920, which means that I can spend, I'm not saying I'm going to spend, I'm saying I can spend 1,920 euros or dollars, whatever you want to say. I can spend that amount to acquire one client. I can spend it. I don't have to spend it. I'm not going to spend it. I don't want to spend it. I want to spend less. I want to save money, but I can spend it. Now, with us understanding this metric, and my team, as you can see here, has noted down that 1250 is pretty much the metric that we want to aim for. I want to get that 1250, and I want to understand in my head, like, okay, we don't want to go above 1250 because that's kind of the safe spot for us. If we go above that, we can still spend, right? We can still acquire clients. If we're getting clients at a good price point, fine, but we don't want to go above that point. So you want to calculate for yourself, number one priority, at your price point, what is the cost per acquisition? What is actually the number you're willing to pay or you can pay to acquire one client for? If you have one client pretty much that you can acquire for a certain price point and you have understanding of what that is, there's not much more that you have to do other than just keeping that in mind when you start spending ads. And until you've acquired a client and until you've spent that exact amount, never, ever, ever turn off the ads because you haven't spent enough to acquire your client. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that if, let's say your cost per acquisition at a price point of 2K, right? Let's say you have a 2K average order value. 2K average order value divided by 5. What we want to understand that if we divide that by 5, you can spend 400. This is, like I said, this is very conservative thinking of me, because like I want to just make sure that you don't overspend. So a fifth of your price point is what should be your cost per acquisition. Some say a third, some say a fourth. I say a fifth. Why? Because I'd rather play it safe and spend less to acquire a client for more than spend more to acquire a client for the same price. So I want to make sure that if we have 2K at your average order value, that we can spend up to 400 euros to acquire that client. So that means if you are running ads and you haven't spent up to 400 to try to acquire a client, and trust me, if you need to be doing something very like weird if you're not getting any leads or booked calls with 400 at a price point of 2K. Like there's something off then, right? So like if you spend 400, you don't get any leads, or you don't get like anything out of it. There's something wrong with your messaging. There's something wrong with you not using social proof. There's something wrong with you not doing the thing that I'm telling you to do in this video. Okay, so getting back to this cash ROAS, we spent 7.7k, collected 21k in cash. Now this is actually a lot higher right now, so you can see, we spent ballpark 7.6k, and now we got like 3.75 ROAS, cash ROAS, and 8.14 revenue ROAS. So it was actually it's actually a little bit more. And why is that? Because, well, as you can see here, we're closing clients at a higher price point. So what happened, and what I'm doing always, is I'm increasing my price, because I know the value is increasing. I know my skills are improving. I know my team skills are improving. I know we're getting better results for clients. I know we have the results for clients, which is what I'm showcasing, which is why I can ask a higher price. The more leverage I have, the more results I have, the more results I showcase to people, the more they're going to understand Stefan knows what he's talking about. He's valuable, and he can help me go from A to Z. I'm willing to pay him for the transformation. That's it. So the more I do this, the more this increases. The more I show leverage, the more the revenue increases. The more I show leverage, the warmer the leads are that come on the call. And they are closable more easily, right? So this is pretty much what we're doing on this front. And at our level, the only thing that matters is, what did it cost to acquire the click? What did it cost to get the lead? Well, pretty much this one, I would honestly even go remove. So what did it cost us to get the lead, right? If we don't have any calls, we look at this. If we have calls, I ask myself the question, what did it cost us to put someone on the calendar and get them to show up, right? And get them to show up, right? Get them to show up. And then what was the return in cash collected? What was the cost per acquisition and the total revenue booked? And when we know these things, when we understand these things, we can decide the metrics and decide where to, put the next piece of the puzzle to make the puzzle an even completer puzzle. So because if you can consistently acquire a client and 5k, right, for example, on average, for 400 to 600 is spent, right, which would then be like a tenth of your, like pretty much like what you're acquiring a client for, right? Because if 5k, 500, it's a tenth of 5k, so you can spend 500 to get that client's tenth of it, where actually, as I said, it's 1/5 usually, so 2,500 would be the kind of sweet spot if you're having a program that's 5k. You don't need 50 ads running to do this. You really don't need them. And that's what I see people doing wrong. Like they're running so many ads that are not, they don't have a couple of direction, clarity in their ads. They don't have their ideal client and callouts. They don't have the right structure in their ad copies and in their ad scripts. They don't have social proof. They don't have leverage with social proof in understanding how to use authority and influence to pretty much get people to understand that they know what they're talking about. They don't have that. They just try to do like random value tips and random things that just don't make sense. Like these things never converted ever. So these things do. And these are the main principles, that core steps that we use, so you can understand also how to do this with yourself, which I'm going to show you in just a second. So you need one creative that converts cold traffic into high-ticket buyers and a system that measures every step of the way. So cost per lead, cost per book call, cost per show up, cost per acquisition, book calls, shows, clients, cash heavy. This is what we need to understand. When we understand this, when we understand these metrics, when we know what these metrics are and what we, what price and pretty much like metric we want to keep for it, what KPI we want to keep for it, that's it. Once you see it like this, once you see these numbers, you realize how much margin is wasted when things get overbuilt. You realize it because you understand like, okay, this was the metric that I wanted to uphold. I'm going above it, so I'm overspending, and now I'm wasting money. But now we're not turning things off. I got to look at, what is the deeper funnel metric? Is there a deeper funnel metric like the cost per acquisition? What are the book calls? What are the shows? What are the clients? And when you understand these things, you can understand and really make sure that there's a clear path to you changing things accordingly, scientifically, efficiently, to get the result that you want. So let's get into the big picture framework. So when you break it down, there are only 3 things that matter, right? 1, it's the creative. And that's usually number 1 thing that people completely mess up on. And most ads fail because they look like ads. And that's the biggest problem. When people think of ads, they're like, oh no, I don't want to do ads, I'm doing organic. I'm like, why? They're like, well, it looks like an ad. I'm like, well, what if the ad doesn't look like an ad? What if it just looks like an organic thing that you're doing? That do you think that could be a possibility? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you don't want to have an ad feel like an ad. And what do I mean with that? Do you see anything in this one of it screaming to be an ad? Do you see me shouting and saying click? Do you see me going here at the end saying click this, click that? Do you see it? No, you don't see it in this creative. You don't see it. You just see her talking about the results that we generated for her. That's it. That's it. I'm not doing call to actions. I'm talking 10% of the time. She's talking 90% of the time. I'm not even speaking. So she's doing the words for me. She's talking on behalf of me. I'm not even doing anything almost in this call. Like, it's low effort. Why? Because I don't want to make it feel like an ad. I don't want to make it feel like something that is looking like an ad. Because the moment it looks like an ad, the moment it feels like an ad, you're going to lose people. You're going to have people think it's an ad. And what happens when people think it's an ad? And when they say, pretty much, this is an ad, skip me. Just scroll. Done. Lost them. This one didn't do that. It was just raw. And it pulled straight from a real conversation. And because of that, it blended into the feed perfectly. And people didn't see it as an interruption, but as something worth listening to. Does that make sense? So we want to make sure that it looks up to par. And when an ad looks up to par, it doesn't feel like an ad. It's strategically implemented as something I call the Trojan horse, which means they don't see that it's an ad. They see it as an organic content post, almost. Okay? Now the path. What we did is the path was very direct. Someone sees the ad, they click, they land in the DMs, or fill out a form and qualify themselves. That's it. So we did only two things. So for example, with this one, if you click, you're gonna be brought to this page pretty much, and you're gonna be brought to pretty much to this page where you can fill out a couple of things, right? We can see a couple of things and understand a couple of things in terms of like what we're doing, and that's it. They just fill this out, and most of them actually started following me from this specific ad. So they went to my profile, they clicked on the profile, and then from that profile they started following me and interacted with me, and then we picked up the followers, send them a voice note, and then talk with them, and then give them like an explanation pretty much on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and all those things coming out from there. So that was the path. It was either the DM, they go and follow us from that ad, or they go to that conversion page where they see a simple form and then convert from there, seeing pretty much what we do and how we do it. So from there we did 2 to 3 short messages. I'm going to get into the DM flow pretty much that we did, which is like an insane strategy, because like, again, people don't think about this. They just hire an appointment setter. They're like, just you do the work, and then they question themselves why they don't get the sales and running like 100K plus per month business. And I'm like, you cannot depend on a setter. A setter will never ever, if they get 5% commission, how can you think that they are going to care about your business the same way that you do when you get 100%? How? And like how? It's not their business. You cannot expect that. But I'm going to get into that in a second. As I said, there's a lot of things I can talk about. I can talk here for 2 hours, but I just want to give you the macro overview so you have an understanding of everything that we did. The speed matters. Once someone becomes a follower, once someone fills out a type form, we want to pick them up as soon as possible, humanly possible. Not with AI, but with a human touch. And that's why our cost per book call at that time was $235. And because drop-off was minimized, the cost per show was $324 because we picked them up immediately. So when a lead came through, boom, we immediately picked them up. And when a call was booked, boom, we already sent them an immediate follow-up message with a lot of reminders on our emails on pretty much who we're helping, what we're doing, and then qualifying them from there to make sure that they have a straight path on getting to the call, already prepared, already have seen a video that actually makes sense for their current situation. And the numbers from week 1 set it up. We had 6,474 profile visits. So if I go to my profile and I scroll down a little bit, it was a little bit more. This is from like 90 days, I would say. But it was like 19,715, for example. We had 44 appointments booked in that first 2 weeks of running this, 10 high-ticket clients closed, and a 7.7K ad spend. Okay, so if you take a look at, for example, also September with us, so we, for example, here 2.74. This was from that specific month. So I'm taking the stats from like the previous month, but just so you have an idea. And we had pretty much like this amount of leads coming through, and then October we had like this amount of people now. So it actually improved. As I said, that's what your ads should be doing. Your ads should be getting you more returns. So in October we have already spent the same budget as we have in September, and we've gotten more results. We've gotten more more results. So we're scaling effectively. We're scaling in growth. We're scaling in doing something that's already working. Okay. So with those profile visits in mind, we had that amount of booked, high tickets client closed, and that's approximately already like 130K or something in revenue in just like 3-4 weeks of time. 21 cash, 52K in contracted revenue. So that's how you scale without guessing. Every morning, what we do is we check the cost per lead, cost per call, cost per show up, CPA, and we see also what is important, which ad performs the best. So if we have an ad that's actually performing the best, we look at scaling that one and just turning off the other ones that don't work, to be honest. We maybe relaunch some new ones just to test it out and see how it goes. But that's it. We don't do anything else. So if the math is right, you push more budget, and if it's not, you cut. That's it. So if you know the metrics, if you can see the metrics, and if you understand the metrics, like for example in Hyros, what we do is we have like full clarity in Hyros, like what we do and how we do it. So we have a visual idea of what is coming in and what is going out and what works and what doesn't work, so we can scale effectively. So when we know whether we're spending 237K and getting 1.3 million out, and when we look at the pretty much the ROAS and pretty much the calls and the qualified calls and the cost per call and blah blah blah, when we know these metrics, we can make decisions based on what makes sense on the data and not make emotional decisions, because a lot of people make emotional decisions these days, and that's not what we want to do. You run it like a P&L, profit and loss accounting firm. Watch the inputs, watch the outputs, pretty much make sure that we have like all the data, and when we have all the data, we pretty much like, Ben Affleck and the accountant, we pretty much just make sure that we have all the numbers and we exactly know what's happening and coming in and out. And when we know that, and when we know what's actually going out, we can make decisions based off that specific data. Okay? So hopefully by now you have a better understanding, like pretty much on what I'm saying and what I'm telling you, because these are such important things that we gotta understand, like the big picture framework, which is the creative, the path, and the numbers. If you don't have this, guys, it's gonna be very tough for you to run the business. I'm being very honest. So this is why this ad works. I'm gonna go in depth on why this ad works, so you understand everything nitty gritty. The ad works because the performance of this ad had nothing to do with production value or spend. As I said, it took me 15 minutes to do the interview with her. It took me 10 minutes to edit it. It took me 5 minutes to launch it in Meta Ads. Done. That's it. All right? And this ad worked because of the format and the positioning and the leverage it created. So please understand this. No matter how good you edit, no matter how much money you throw in editing, no matter how fancy you make it, if the core format and positioning and the leverage used in the ad or anything what you do is not good, you're not going to see the best results. I'm just being very honest with you. If you don't understand these things, you can make the best fancy thing that you ever want to do with red cameras, paying 15K a pop for a camera. You're not going to get the result. You're not going to get it. Like I can confirm on anything that you will not get the result if you're running an agency or a coaching or any type of service-based business. So the real reason why it worked, it was pulled from a real interview with a real client that we got real results for, that's known within a specific industry, which is the Dutch industry. And that's exactly why it blended in the feed instantly. And it was a conversation they'd actually want to listen to, which is why they stopped scrolling and paid attention. They know her. They understand her. They know who she is. They know what she does. So in them knowing what she does, they can understand more of what we do. They want to know what we do, because if we delivered her the results, we would be able to get them the results. Makes sense, right? It's very simple. It's very straightforward. So the credibility was already there because they saw her talking with me. And then they get interested in me and what I do and how I do it and how I did it for her. So hearing a real client talk about their results carries a lot of weight. So I don't need to do animations when I have proof. The only thing that was the length. So the total ad was like 4 minutes, but the core things that were mentioned for the leverage and the authority was 30 to 45 seconds. And that was enough to land a single message with zero drop-off, and you don't need 2 minutes to build curiosity. It was just one clear line, delivered quickly, enough to push someone into the next step. And why did we do it 4 minutes then, if only the 30, 45 seconds is important? Well, because we want to give people some more context. We want to give people context because some people might want to watch a little bit more before they actually click on following me or filling out their form with someone that they've never seen before. Okay? So the CTA also wasn't heavy either. It was just a simple click and see the breakdown, and that's what made people lean in, because it felt like an invitation and not a pitch. So if you go here, you see here the copy was very simple. If you're ready to see what we did, click the link and watch the breakdown on the next page. And that was it. That was the only thing that we did. So We only use that specific system. We only use that specific way of showcasing it to people on what we pretty much did. Clicking on the link, watching the breakdown, CTA not important, showing additional results from other people in the copy, saying what our offer is and our guarantee, as you can see, calling out the audience, and saying what we did exactly to land these high-ticket clients. They don't feel sold to. They feel like they're being shown something on how it actually works. Because with her talking what we did, explaining what we did, it showcases like the understanding of us having the understanding to take her from this part to this part. And leveraging, using that leverage on doing with her. So that means, you gotta imagine, if someone watches a clip like this, they get the understanding of what we're doing. They see what we did. They start, understanding and building the trust with us that we know what we're talking about. So the moment we send them a message in the DM, they're already warmed up. And then on the moment we get on a call and they watch another video of 30 minutes with us just explaining the entire strategy, they're like, I know everything. Like, I'm just warm. Like, let's just do a yes. That's it. Yeah, I just need to give them a little bit of a push in the right direction, and it's a go. Like, I don't need to do more, right? So put together, it's authentic, it's short, it's direct, and that's why the click cost stayed low, and why the funnel converted fast into booked calls, and why the cost per acquisition is getting lower and lower now. So the ad wasn't built to impress, but to move the right people one step further, right? And that's exactly what it did. That's exactly what it did. So that's number 2, why this ad works. So you got to understand why it works with the positioning, the social proof. Her saying, for example, in the ad, in the first, as I said, like I would say like 10, 15 minutes, the results were totally crazy. My results went really through the roof. It was like I went from 10K, 15K to 100K in pretty much in 2 months, in the second month. So in 2 months time, I was second or first month. It was really insane. And then she says like, I still did not believe it. It was like crazy. And then she also didn't realize, how to hire people within a specific time frame, because she needed to hire a lot of people. She had so many people coming into her program. She didn't know what to do with it. And then what happened is like, we even had like more results come in. So like, we even went to like 150K in, I think it was like the third month or something, in the second month already 150K, she says. So you can imagine when someone hears these things, they're like, whoa, wait. I'm at 10K. I'm at 15K. How did she do it in 2 months? And she's saying it. It's not me saying it. Because you can also understand, if I say it, it's different. If I say, I've helped this client go from blah, 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 it's different. It's already different. It's already putting me in the guru mode, right? This one is not putting me in the guru mode. This one is putting me in the, hey, look at my client mode. I'm not talking. I'm just telling you what they're saying. That's it. I'm not flexing. I'm not leveraging. And that's why the ad runs. And that's why the ad works. Part 3, running the ads. Now, I'm going to get a little bit technical in here, so just bear with me because I want to give you a clear understanding on everything. As you can see, I'm not doing it like all these other people. They're just vague and just tell you, oh, do this and mirror board. Blah, blah, blah. I don't do that. I want to be very clear with you. I want you to have an understanding really of how to do this. So what we did is we started lean. The budget for us was, we always start with like, for ourselves, like, I would say like 20, 30 euros a day to test. Right? To like see what works. That's for us. Sometimes we go to 30 or 50, but usually it's like, I would say like 20 to 40 a day. It's enough to get data. It's enough to see the stats and see if an ad will work. And at a certain moment we can see like, okay, is it working or is it not working? Is it getting a good click-through rate? Is it getting a good like amount of like opt-ins creations from the type form? Is it getting us followers? Is it doing something on the front end? If not, we don't want to gamble with budget. We just let the system prove itself in small increments. Meta knows it better than us. And the targeting for us was set to broad only. No layers, no stacked interest, no guesswork. But the thing is, what we did is pretty much like broad only was after we started running it on the retargeting ad. So we started running it on the retargeting ad. And pretty much on the retargeting ad, we just targeted everyone on my Instagram and the pixel followers and all these things. And pixel data. And then pretty much all the people that have done something with us or showed some sort of interaction, and then pretty much just retargeted them that way. So we just started with retargeting first just to see how it does, because on retargeting we can start with like 2 euros, 3 euros, 4 euros a day, 5 euros a day max, if the budget, depending on how big the audience size is. And then we tested it on cold as well, because on the retargeting it worked. So on the cold we were assuming like, okay, it will work probably on the cold as well. So if the creative is right, Meta's algorithm finds the buyers faster than any manual targeting trick. We don't have to do any tricks. The ad structure was also very simple. One campaign, one ad set, 2 variations, as I told you. So we had 2 variations set in the ad set. In the ad set level, it was ABO. So we ran that pretty much for like, for the retargeting, it was like 2, 3, 4, 5 a day. And then for the cold, we did it at 10 a day. And now we're scaling it up to even more. So the only change between these two was in the first 3 seconds was a different opener to see which one grabbed attention. So that's the only thing we changed on these two. And then everything else stayed identical, and that's how you isolate variables and keep the data also clean, because then you can split test based on what you think would be needed and just test the hooks. So we don't test anything else, just the hooks, just see how that will work. And because we understand data, we were able to make clear decisions. Breaking it down, as I said, cost per call was 235. That's the KPI that mattered most to us, but the deeper funnel metric was more important. The cost per show was important, 324. That bridged the gap between the people that were interested in actually on the call. But the cost per acquisition was, for me, as I told you, the most important. So it was like 1,297, now it dropped down a little bit on 3K retainers and a 9.6K and 15K offer. That math is like hard to argue with. Like, I cannot argue with that math. Like, that's just insane. That's just incredible. And if someone were to tell me, you would pay something like that, to acquire a client at that price, I would tell them, here you have $1 million. Please take it. Do what you think it makes sense. Done. Because scaling decisions were made also of those numbers alone. So if cost per book call, cost per show up, and CPA are in range, you simply increase the spend. That's it. And if they're not in KPI, and if they're not showing the things in range, you shut down the ads and we run another one. That's it. And that's what keeps ads profitable, not complexity. So you got to understand also, if you don't have any leverage in the market right now, I don't recommend for you to run ads, to be honest. Like, I really want you to have like either a really good offer that makes sense. So you got to make your offer clear, which is something that we do in our blueprint program. Pretty much we make clear, like, what's your offer? What's your core offer? And how is that offer relating to your ICP with what their current situation is and their desired situation and what they want to go to? And when we have these things in place and we can use that, that's already a big thing. That's already going to get us 50% of the way. But we also got to have, if we have it, social proof in some sort of way. And when we use this and we combine it, it's a exploding strategy, because it will get you 100% of the results 99% of the time. So that's what you got to understand on the running of the ads part and what we did. Now, as I said, age is just 18 to 65, all genders. Reach is just pretty much like Netherlands. As you can see, we just did Netherlands here, not anything else. Now we started testing like Belgium and just seeing like how Belgium is working as well. But we did only these things. That's it. Okay. So funnel flow. Very simple funnel flow. Clicks are the easy part. Anyone can buy traffic. Anyone can run ads. Anyone can boost a post. Anyone can go into the ads manager and watch a YouTube video on how to run ads. Doesn't mean you understand how to run ads. So you can only see the real difference once people land in your DMs or fill out the form that we had. And that's where the deal is either made or lost. And what we did in our opener was so simple. It was, thanks for the DM or follow. What brought you to the profile? And what do you do? Looking forward to connecting with you. And here's the trick. If you want to have a ninja trick, because everyone is looking for this trick. The trick is, you know what the trick is? Just being very honest. A personal voice note from myself. That's the trick. Hey, Stefan here. Thought I sent you a personal voice note, not AI. Thanks for the DM. Thanks for the follow. What brought you to the profile? What do you do? Looking forward to connecting with you. Done. That's it. That's the trick. You want a trick? That's a trick. There's no magic thing that I did. There's no magic thing to get these results. What is magic is a personal relationship builder on the front end. If you don't have a personal relationship builder, you're going to lose 99% of the clients. And if you don't know, if you like, some people wouldn't even know how to do this. And if you don't know how to guide people from pretty much following you, coming into your DM, converting them to be warm on the call, because I sometimes send 10 voice notes before someone books a call, which is why my closing rate is so high. If you don't know how to do the setting part and you just put a setter on it and you just let it go, you're going to waste money. You're going to waste money, you're going to waste time, you're going to think like, oh, the leads are not quality. Well, they're not quality because you're not giving them the right time. That's like saying my child is spoiled without giving the child enough time and focusing your attention as a parent to pretty much help the child become a full-grown adult. If you don't give it a time on this, it's like saying like, oh, my child is spoiled, and you didn't give it any time and energy. So if you don't do it with this, I hope you don't do it on the child part if you have kids. But like, you shouldn't be letting people go that easily on a call just to book them in on a call. And that's a problem with setters. That's a big, big problem with setters, and people don't understand it. With setters, they become lazy. And when they become lazy, what happens is they only want the quick commission on the call. They don't care about the connection building. They don't care about like, you know, them converting a person and really understanding their situation and what they're doing. They just throw them on a Zoom link or a calendar link and pretty much book them on a call because they want to get the commission. And that's not how it works. That's not going to help. That's not going to make them convert. Okay? That's, in my opinion, lazy setting. And I don't like lazy setting. So that one message and line did all the filtering for us. And if someone gave pretty much a straight answer, you know they were serious. And if they dodged or, you know, didn't do anything, they were never going to book anyway. But what we do is we pretty much follow up with people, right? If we think that they're a good quality lead. So for example, we had so many followers coming through, as you can see here, every single day, and followers coming through. As you can see, I follow some of them. Don't follow all of them. I follow some of them. Why do I follow some of them? Because not all of them are my ICP. I don't want to take all of them. So I just follow up with the ones that are actually good. And what I then do is leads that didn't answer, get a personal voice note follow-up from my setter or me within 24 hours. And I always tell my setter, you send voice notes on behalf of me. I don't care. You just say, hey, Ivan here, business partner of Stefan. I'm also in his DMs. Just say it like that. I don't care. I don't care if you say like, you know, if you do voice notes or what. People are like, what? You do voice notes? Your setter does voice notes? I'm like, yeah, go figure. Because the number one thing that we've gotten in DMs is, oh, I thought you were a setter. Oh, I thought this was AI. Oh, it feels like, you know, is this a setter or is it you? Show me a picture. Send me a picture of a fork, right? I've had these people do these things. I've had them do these crazy things because they don't trust it being me. And when I send a picture of a fork, they're like, oh, wow, sorry, I didn't know. I'm like, yeah, it's me, right? Or it's my business partner setter and he just makes a picture of a fork. Done, right? So from there, the qualifying happened fast. 2, 3 quick exchanges, see if they're a fit. Again, through voice notes, only voice notes, boom, 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 voice notes, personal voice notes, and long ones if needed, right? To really convert them, really let them know like, hey, we know what we're talking about. Hey, leverage it. And everything that we're saying in those voice notes are hitting the nail on the head. Bam, 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 bam. We have the social proof. We have the authority. We have the strategy. We know what we're doing. We see you. We go to their profile. We look at their website. We look at their funnel. We go to their ad library. We see their ads. These are the things that I'm doing as a setter, right? As a CEO setter to convert someone, which is a traditional seller is not doing. They're like, oh, what do you do? Trust wasted. You could have already seen what they do. If they're a coach or an agency owner, you can find out what they do. These days, everyone has things online. You can find what they do. Don't be lazy. Do the work, all right? Get off your bum. People these days are allergic to setters, as I said, being pushy or just wanting a call. So being more personal than anyone in the market will help you close more deals. And if they were serious, the booking link went out immediately, but we needed to nurture them first. And then we pretty much sent them the link. And if not, the conversation ended. We don't want to waste time on people who weren't a match because not everybody booked away, which is normal. That's why we had follow-up sent with either a long-form video, like, hey, watch this video of Sophia with her long-form interview that we pretty much had with her, so you can look at that. If they're a little bit skeptical, will this work for me, blah, blah, blah. And, or we sent them a case study pretty much of someone in their situation, and then they booked. Because we tie it back to their situation. So, for example, oh, okay, you are a, you know, pretty much like, let's say, med spa agency. Here, watch this video with Milan. He's also a med spa agency. Oh, you have website and CRO and SEO agency. Oh, here's Leroy, scaled to 7K plus clients. Oh, you have a 9-to-5 right now. Oh, here's Ewout. Boom. All tied back to pretty much like how people are getting results. Done. Short and to the point. Just enough to pull a few more calls in without feeling pushy. And that's why this strategy converts insanely. So it wasn't just the ad. It was the way the flow inside the DMs goes and how we follow up that moves people quickly to the calendar without letting leads go to waste. This, my friends, is the most important strategy that you will find these days on the market. Everyone is saying this is how you build a setter team, this is how you build a closing team. Now on scale, as I told you, it's important that the setter takes ownership and sends voice notes. On scale, it's tough for you to scale a business higher than 200K a month without having someone that can do it for you. Okay, so that's important. Now, let me get into the most technical and then we'll finish it off from there. I hope this video was valuable for you so far and that you're taking some notes because it's a lot of information, I can imagine. Part 5 is the tracking. From day one, everything was tracked to the point. We carried out like UTMs on all of these, which is you know, pretty much like parameters to make sure that everything is clear on where the people are coming from. So pretty much like we had the source meta, the medium was CPC, and then campaign was like interview low dash like ad. That might sound like a small detail, but it was, it meant every single conversation in the DMs could be traced back to its origin. So there was no like, maybe it comes from organic, or, where did they come from? No. We know where the prospect came from, and we ask that to them as well, because our sales team also asks people like where they came from in the sales call. And that way we base it pretty much, okay, so you came from here, this is working, we scale that up. So clicks and surface metrics, they don't mean much if you cannot follow the trail all the way to revenue. So if you don't know where someone came from, you cannot really scale the thing that's actually working. Does that make sense? It's very straightforward, but like you got to know where they come from, because each step was mapped. That way, if performance dropped, we know whether the issue was on the ad side or the DM flow or the booking process or the close. We could look at the metrics and we can say, okay, this is not working, because if the cost per lead goes up, as I said, which it did, because from September it was like 158, now it's pretty much like 305. If this one goes up, but the cost per acquisition goes down, right? It means that we might have a thing on the ad that maybe is getting fatigued. Maybe we need to switch things up. Maybe we need to target a different audience. Maybe we need to do a little bit of things on that side. But we still know that it's converting. So it's definitely not the ad itself in terms of that sense, which is the missing piece. But it's maybe the angle that we need to take in a new variant pretty much to test it out. So the KPI was anchored on the pretty much cost per lead, cost per book call, cost per show up, and CPN. That's the metrics that cut through the noise. And if your book calls are coming in at 235 and every client is worth 9.6K or 15K, the system is highly sustainable. But if that number drifts upwards, book calls, CPA, or all these things, you will know how much room you have before acquisition stops being profitable if you have these metrics in place as we do. And here's the nuance that a lot of people miss. So book calls don't necessarily equal revenue. So what's more important is how many people showed up. That's why we track that, because if your show up rate drops, your cost per acquisition goes up. And if your show up rate goes lower than 60% on cold audiences, it's definitely a red flag, and we have a big issue. So for us, the number held steady at 324. Now it went up a little bit, but I still don't care, because the cost per acquisition was the most important. And that's a hard number that gives us the full cost of acquiring a client. And in this campaign, as I said, it was like in the beginning 450, but now it went up to pretty much like, as I said, 1,000 ballpark. And when you're closing 5K retainers, ballpark average on that, you don't need to be a mathematician to see the margin. So everything else, like the likes, comments, impressions, CTR, CPC, CPM, background, all these things are like nice. They're cute, but they don't give us the moving forward the business type of metrics that we need, right? So that's why we never use them as a decision point. They're indicators at best, but distractions at worst, because we don't want to focus too much on that. So that's also one thing you got to understand. So what made this system work, just in a nutshell, is not just the ad or the DM flow. It was the fact that every single stage had a number attached to it. So it was the number, and then it was the DM flow, and then it was the ad. And the pipeline wasn't just activity. It was measurable ROI at each checkpoint. We weren't sitting around just debating like, maybe the ad is slowing down. We were looking at the correct numbers, making decisions based off that, and if the numbers held up, the spend went up. And if they didn't, spend came down or stayed the same. Now that's the difference between running ads and running a business like a creative experiment versus running them like a real business as a profit and loss. So when the numbers are clean and tied back to revenue, scaling becomes a math problem. And you know what the funny thing is and the great thing is? Math is predictable. You can predict it. If I say 2 plus 2 is what? You say it's 4. Well, it's predictable. I can predict it, right? I can predict what it's going to be. So if we can predict it, we can tweak it, and we have the input ourselves to make it work. So if the ads are not working, guess who's the person responsible for it not working? That's right, us. So if ads are not working, what do you need to do? You need to go to the math, look at the math, and do some quick maths, what I always say, to pretty much do all the numbers and the calculations to make it make sense. Final part. 6 scaling and takeaway on part 6. Once calls were coming in consistently, there was no need to rebuild the funnel. The same campaign kept running, the same ad set, the same structure. The only shift was to increase the budget gradually step by step. And we did this by scaling vertically. So we scaled the budget with 20 to 30% daily, depending on the clients closed from the previous day. And we also took it from retargeting to cold. That's the only thing we did. And we maybe added another country, maybe added a couple of targeting options. That's it. It's the only thing we did. Now, most people would have complicated it at this stage, like new funnels, targeting, landing pages, all these things. We didn't. We just kept it simple. We just took the entire interview, put it live, and scaled the existing ad as well. And that alone was enough to keep the results fresh without burning out the first cut. And that week, those 2 clips closed 5 clients. So in pretty much in 1 week, 5 clients, 51K, 7.7K spent. And as I told you, we have this ad still running, but we also have the entire interview still running that you can see here. That is pretty much still running, from like September. Let me just turn this one off. So it's pretty much like running from here. This is the entire interview, as you can see here. And it's entire interview with like all different countries that they can see it as well. And that's it. And that's what we're pretty much doing on this front. Okay. So that's pretty much that. Now, with that being said, that's the lesson. So scaling doesn't come from complexity. It comes from taking what already works and putting more fuel behind it. So when the KPIs are right, the cost per book call, cost per show up, cost per acquisition, revenue ROAS, cash ROAS, the system tells you exactly where to push. And that's how you grow. So if you want to go deeper into how this works, or the DM, pretty much like strategy, and see how I do it with personal voice notes yourself, just send me a DM on Stefan Angelovic on my Instagram, and I'll be happy to also guide you and help you with the personal voice notes, or my setter, so you'll know that. And if you're already on the channel, check the other breakdowns. Each one pretty much unpacks another part of pretty much what we do of this client acquisition strategy. And as I said, we have different strategies for different people in different places, but hopefully this one gave you a better idea on how this one in specific can make it work for you if you simply run an ad that works on the front end and showcase it to an audience that is familiar with that person, where you leverage the results, where you don't speak, you're not the guru, you keep it simple, and you have your clients speak for you on behalf of you, showcasing your audience why you know what you're doing to bring them from A to B. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.